Welcome to WP Theme Tutorial, episode 42. Today we're going to create some calendar feeds for your WordPress posts. So that means that you'll be able to subscribe via iCal or via Google Calendar or via Outlook and see all your published and upcoming posts right on your calendar with the times they'll publish. Before we do that, I'd like to encourage you to join me on Facebook. I share probably 3 or 4 extra links there that don't get on the site every week, just tutorials that I like. What else? You can see I did some GitHub stuff from Pippin's plugins, a great post from 10 up about your hook priorities. Join me there, you'll get some extra content, and I'm quite happy to interact with you there on a regular basis. So what we've got here is just a generic WordPress default install. You can see I've created 4 posts just at different times so that we can check the calendar feeds when they come up. The demo ICS post, a scheduled post, a published post, and the generic Hello World post from WordPress. Now I've also started building the plugin. And what I've done so far is I've downloaded the Easy Peasy ICS PHP class, and I've put that in my plugin. You can see that right here, Easy Peasy ICS. And I've also done the basic plugin header. And you can see I've got some to-do notes in here because I've actually already built the whole plugin just to make sure it works. Got to do that every time so I don't look like a dork when I'm screencasting. Anyway, so you can see the to-do notes. You won't see that, or don't worry about those. So just grab the name plugin header out of the post, and then we can get going. Once we have our basic plugin header, the next thing we need to do is to grab our basic class that's just going to lay out all the standard things we need for our WordPress plugins. And there it is. So what does this include? This includes 3 hooks up top for us. When we activate, deactivate, and uninstall, it sets up some constants for us, which is here, WPTT ICS feed folder. So that just creates a constant that gives us a URL directly to this folder, and our includes function, which has nothing in it to start. So the next thing we want to do is include our Easy Peasy ICS class. Again, we're just setting up the plugin here, so we're not doing anything fancy yet. Easy Peasy ICS class. So what this has done is include, using our constant, the Easy Peasy ICS class. The next thing we need to do is we need to add a new feed. By default, WordPress isn't going to provide us a feed location for this, so we need to add it. In this case, we're going to use, not in this case, but anytime you're adding a new feed, you need to use the add feed function inside WordPress. And you can see it takes 2 parameters. And WPTT ICS feeds is the name of the feed. So that means on your site, you'd type http://yoursite.com/ feed equals WPTT ICS feeds, and that's what you subscribe to get your feed. The next thing it takes is a function name called generate feed, and that's what we actually use to generate our feed content. Now, we're not going to jump to generate feed yet because there's some other things we need to do. Add feed actually changes the permalink structure of WordPress, so what we need to do is make sure that this refreshes for users on plugin activation. We use plugin activation and not init. You'll see init in many other tutorials, but you'd never want to use it because the flush rewrite rules function is pretty expensive. So we only want to do it once on plugin activation and then actually once on deactivation so that we clean up after ourselves nicely. Now, if we just called the flush rewrite rules function, that wouldn't be of any use to us because flush rewrite rules, if we haven't added our feed yet, wouldn't do anything. So if we just said, see in our activate, if we typed flush rewrite rules, it would do nothing useful for us because we haven't added our feed yet. So what we need to do, let's see, we're calling this add new feed, which means it's calling the add new feed function inside our class, and then we're flushing our rewrite rules. So we're creating it and then flushing them to make sure that we have set up properly. And then also on deactivation, we want to make sure that we flush our rewrite rules again. So we just clean up after ourselves and we don't leave useless rewrite rules around for us or for our users. So now we get to the actual meat of our plugin, the generate feed function. And this is going to do a few things for us. So we paste that in there. So what does this do? The first thing it's going to do is right here on line 82, we're declaring our easy peasy ICS. We have to create a new instance of the PHP class for our calendars. Now the next thing we're going to do is develop our post arguments for our WP query object. Because what we're going to do is get our posts out of the database. So you can see I've set my post status, and it's got two statuses, publish and future. And my post per page is -1, which means all posts. If you have a many thousand word or many thousand post blog, it's going to be pretty expensive. So what we'll do in a future screencast is limit it to the previous 30 days from today and the next 30 days from today, effectively 2 months. So we'll get any of the posts that are published or future in a 2-month window around today. For now, we're just going to demo it with -1. The next thing we're doing is making sure we're on the default time zone. In WordPress, and we'll jump there right now, under settings, general. Oh, I've got an error in there on line 91, so let's see where that is. 91. There we go. So you can see there I've got two extra quotes there. There we go. So you can see our time zone is set to Vancouver, because that's where I am. Well, I'm in that time zone. I'm just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. So we want to make sure that our users are seeing it in their time zone, which is why we're going to make sure that we double check our time zone and we set it to whatever the internal setting of WordPress is. So if they haven't set it, they're not going to get it on the right time zone, and there's nothing we can do about that. We're just going to make them set it. And then we're going to feed our arguments into WP query. Now we actually really start to get into creating our feed. The easy peasy ICS, we're going to use add event, takes 5 parameters. It takes our start time, our end time, our summary, our description, and our URL. So start time and end time are pretty obvious. Summary is going to be the title, so what the actual, basically an appointment on your calendar shows up, that title. And you can see that I'm defining it to get the title, so it will be the title of the post. The description is what goes typically in the notes field on a calendar entry, and we're going to make it the excerpt so you have an idea of what the content is. And we're also going to get the permalink to the post. You can see where I've defined start time and end time. I've used get the time, and I've called capital U, which is a Unix timestamp. That is what it expects. For end time, I've used the string to time feature or function of PHP, and I'm just saying plus 10 minutes. That's all we're going to do. It's going to be, so that means it'll show up on your calendar at the time it published, so 9 a.m. say, and it will go from 9 a.m. till 9:10, and then it will show up on your calendar. So you can see we loop through all our feeds here, or all our posts that match our WP query object, just with a standard WP query loop. We're going to call reset post data, and then we call ICS render. And that's it. Now we've actually generated our feed properly. So let's pull up my calendar. You can see I've already subscribed in my demo here with demo ICS post and hello world. So I'm just going to refresh, and nothing happens. That's because I actually forgot something. So what did we forget? We forgot to add our feed action. So we did add the add feed function, or add new feed, on plugin activation, but we need to add it as an action on init so that it's always called. So now if we refresh, there you go. You can see I've got another scheduled post and published posts. And if I hop into the week view, you can see they're scheduled for 9 a.m., which is the time I set, and they go for 10 minutes. So that's it. You can really do this with anything. I originally created a plugin similar to this that was showing coaches all their call booking times. Calls were booked as WordPress post objects, and then when a student subscribed to them, we used a meta query to get the student ID. So if that meta query was valid, then it put a post up there, only showing them booked calls, not all their available calls. This can really be used for anything, and all that other example would do is change the WP query that we use to show you just the things you want. In that case, we also tied it to user IDs, and we obfuscated the user IDs so that you couldn't just randomly subscribe to someone else's calendar. So that's it. You can get this plugin on GitHub right now. I'm not going to be updating it from there all the time, though. That's just where we're going to manage issues, and I'm going to submit it to the WordPress plugin repository. So if you want it, it should be there. I think they're pretty backed up right now, so maybe by the end of the week. Thanks for watching.